Hello, everyone, wherever you are in the world. It gives me great pleasure to welcome our guest for today, who is a PMP, actually a lawyer as well. It's not every day we have a lawyer and a PMP in the building giving us lessons learned. So I'm really excited to have you, Serah. I would love for you to share whatever you think is relevant to your journey as a PMP. And for those who are just coming, we're listening to lessons learned from our PMP boss, who got certified some days ago. Is it up to a week, Serah?
Yes, it is. It was on
Wow.
the 22nd.
Wow. That's 8 days ago.
Mm.
So it's a week and a day. Well, go ahead and tell us, why did you want to do the PMP in the first place? Being a lawyer, people would have said you're already established in a profession. Why do PMP? What was the big pull for you?
Okay, thank you for that question. First of all, I would say I've always had the desire and the attraction to organizing things and structuring things. So even while I was practicing law, I also occupied administrative role, um, let's say middle management role. And in the course of that, I needed to put things in place, ensure that value is being delivered. And I was I came to understand that there are certain things that has to do with structuring and patterns towards delivering value. And when I took up the course on project management, a preliminary course, like just a short training, I discovered that project management actually has to do with a whole lot more beyond construction. And it helps with ensuring that things are delivered adequately and value is being delivered at the end of the day. So that that attracted me to project management. So I proceeded with taking up a postgraduate studies in project management, which I recently completed some months back. And while taking the course, I started to see more need for project management, especially in my field, because we handle a lot of cases, and case management is not something that most lawyers take seriously. So I saw that it is really, really required and very important for anybody to have that skill that has to do with project management. So I developed, what would I call it, more love for the program. And after I concluded, which I performed well, I decided to take up I had in mind I was going to do the PMP, but there was so much discussion around it. So in order to summarize, I started with the CSM and I took the PSM before I took the bold step to write the PMP. So this is just a background of what attracted me to taking up the professional exam and becoming a certified PM.
Mm. So CSM, for those who don't know, stands for Certified Scrum Master. But why did you do that CSM? Did they teach Agile in your postgraduate program or project management?
Yes, Agile was one of our courses, and it was really an interesting one for me. So that was why I started with it. In fact, I just was attracted to, amongst other courses that we had, risk management and the rest of them. Agile was something that I could relate to more easily. So that was what geared me towards taking up the CSM first, and after which I proceeded with the rest.
Gotcha. And for those who don't know, Serah also got PSM certified before she took the PMP, which was really mind-blowing. You got PSM certified within a few days of me telling you about the program, because you came in for a PMP and then I started talking about PSM and you said, I could try it. And I'm like, yeah, go for it. Study up. And you did. And you got certified. And that's a very difficult exam. For those who don't know, it's 80 questions in what, 1 hour, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, that's really challenging. So beyond this decision to go ahead and take the PMP, um, how did you find Praizion?
Okay, well, I would say from two perspectives. The content delivery, starting with the materials and the training itself, I found it very, very useful and very useful and inspiring as well. I would also say another angle of Praision is the fact that we are being pushed, let me say a psychological or a psychological mindset to it, like, okay, that the approach of, you know, we having getting the courage and inspiration we need to push and take the exams. So I came I came across Praision through a YouTube video, and that was when I reached out to you, and after which I was introduced to the whole process, and it's been a good journey um with that.
Thank you. And being one of our students who is in the world of law, when you and I started talking, it prompted me to go back to revisit an idea I had had to bring alive the 49 processes through story. And the case management project is what came as a result of that. So I want to give you kudos for that. I'm really happy that you came on the program and we started talking about how to make it real world. And then we started talking about case management and the dilemma that some lawyers face. So for those who haven't watched the video that I put out some days ago on the case management project and making it real world, a lot of it is as a result of Serah's coming on the program, being a lawyer. So that's really exciting. So when you talk about project management versus law, there's this misnomer that, well, if you're able to be a great lawyer, then project management professional is going to be a breeze. What do you have to say about that?
Yes, I'll just have to laugh first because it's not. I well, maybe I need to be grateful for my mindset because I don't take any program for granted. And I think you would have observed that with me, Phil. I was giving this so much attention that at some point you even had to ask me, you can do it, don't worry. You pass the bar exam. So this should be like, you know, a walk in the park. But I always make sure I put my best foot forward in anything I'm doing. So I can say confidently that project management requires the PMP exams requires a lot of preparation. And why I'm saying this is because I knew the attention I gave to it. It's also, I used to think law is the only selfish profession or discipline, but I see that it's, project management is also a selfish one. And part of what made me a bit concerned is the fact that I spoke to a couple of friends that they are project managers in their offices, but they don't have the PMP. And I noticed like two of them had tried taking the PMP and they didn't pass.
Wow.
So that again gave me some fear. Like, okay, if project managers are not passing the PMP, then what am I, you know? But I just discovered that there's actually more to it. You need to purge yourself of anything you think you know with regards to project management and focus, like you should be laser focused on what PMI expect as an institute,
Mm,
because they are the body in charge and they are the ones that organizes the exams. So you will discover that you will learn a lot. Your mind will be open to a lot of things that you think you're doing right, or the supposed normal of the day, which actually is not meant
mm,
to be, like the difference between what is being done and what ought to be done.
mm,
So I would say it requires its attention. It's not something, but as I when I came to the end of the exam, after the exam, the feeling I had during preparation and after I wrote the exam, it's a bit different, because I then discovered that even though you need to put in the work, you also need to be very strategic about it. That way, you won't get yourself overwhelmed. Being strategic is being in tune with what is really expected and what's what is really in well, how will I put it? I'm trying to find the right word for it. I'm trying to say agile is really more what is expected now. So, and that is what I was confronted with during the exam. The situational questions, practical questions. So this is what I believe everybody should develop their mindsets towards that. You can't really say how the exams would come, but preparing for agile really, really helped me. And the fact that I already had my CSM and my PS, so that also helped. In all, one needs to prepare properly and take past questions as well. I mean, there's a way the simulation questions.
Absolutely. Well, that's a very good insight. Thank you. Let's talk about the exam. And I want to say thank you to Stephanie and Mary Beth and Vivian for coming. And as you get questions, please go ahead and put the questions in the chat, and Serah will get to them ASAP. So Serah, let's talk about this exam. 230 minutes, 180 questions is what it should read. So 180 questions, 230 minutes. You got breaks. Just walk us through the whole process, because I believe everyone knows what is required for this exam: people, process, business, a little bit of PMBOK 6, 7, Agile Practice Guide. There's all sorts of stuff people study. But when you boil it down, it comes down to the 230-minute adventure. So walk us through that.
Yes, time is not always our friend. They say time is not your friend when you're having fun. I don't know if PMP exam is fun, but time was not my friend anyway. I had to try and prepare myself uh, to factor in the time limitation. So I'm not really good with calculations. So I just had it in mind that the first break, I will take it once I see 150 minutes or 155 minutes. And I actually took my breaks. When it was 150 minutes, I had to take the break because I was conscious of the fact that if I don't finish, I'll be undoing myself. So I had to put in more speed. And you had already warned us that we should try and make sure we complete our questions. We have to mark all questions. So I focused on that. Then when I returned, I was targeting once I see 80 minutes or 70 minutes, because it won't actually tell you you've spent this. You will just see how the time keeps dropping down. So you need to have at the back of your mind when should be your alerts, like, okay, it's time to take a break now, or it's time to end this, so you could have more time for the rest. There's usually that temptation to want to get the question right, to read it again and again. But once you're in a relaxed mind, and I just want to mention this, the fact that they are more or less situational, it helps with just, I mean, it's the mindset, it's already there. That's why we need to let it be part of us. Like, it's the mindset. So once you see the situation, you should be able to decipher, okay, this is what I need to do to handle this situation right. This is what I should not be doing. So with time management, I think it's something that we need to talk more about, because I know a whole lot of people would be able to answer, most of people that have prepared will be able to answer those questions, but the time might not be sufficient for them. So the putting yourself, having a relaxed mind, talking to yourself, and being conscious of when you should stop for the first batch before taking your break, and when you should stop for the second batch as well. You need to be conscious of that. So I finished, like, I think I had 5 more minutes in total.
Wow.
I finished, so it was just a very short time. But I
Wow.
did it in such a manner that even though I flagged some questions I wasn't too sure about, but I made sure I had selected my answer. So worst case, if I couldn't go back, it's gone.
Wow. Wow. So that is very insightful. Can you walk us through again what the process is when you see a question? Do you read, were you reading it all the way through from beginning to the end? Were you skimming over some of it? Were you reading the options from the bottom up? Just walk us through how you did it in particular.
Okay, what I did personally is once I saw the question, I just read through from the beginning, and I read with preparation to answer. I read with preparation to answer. So as soon once I read the question the first time, I read the answers like with speed. Then I see the aspect they are referring to. So I could go back to the middle part to check whatever particular, because there are some questions that would have like two answers. You could see clearly that doing this is right, doing this is right. So I used elimination method, and that really helped me. I just immediately kick off the ones that no. Then I pick the remaining two that I would feel is either this. That is when I then go back to check as to what particularly connects to a particular answer. And there's always something that distinguishes the first one. Either one is usually more of a general thing to do, while the other one particularly relates to the situation that has been created.
Mm,
So
got
elimination would help you fast. Once you
with that.
eliminate the first two,
Yeah.
then you go back to specifics.
That's a lot of stuff that you have to do within a 1 minute, 15-second time box, which begs the question, as Mary's asking, really great one from Mary Beth is, okay, how many full practice tests did you take before the exam to get to that level of elimination, quick analysis? That's a lot that the brain has to do. So it's a great question to understand how much warming up did you do? How many full practice tests did you do?
Hmm. Well, this is a tricky question because it has to do with individual differences. Now, I took practice tests, but I was taking the short practice test. I didn't really take the full one. I think I only took one of the full practice
A
tests, and
full.
yes, and I stopped, and I later came back to it. But there's something that happens when you're in exam mode.
Yes.
I can't explain it. There's something that, and where the practice tests, where the practice simulators or tests help me, I wouldn't say it's more to do with my time management. It helped me with when I read through the ones I missed. When I reviewed my answers, I could spend 30 minutes on a practice test, but I could spend 1 hour or two reviewing where I missed it and why I missed it. I would see the question. Now, this is while I was practicing, because I could see the answers that I got wrong, and I would see why I picked that answer. And that was what helped me with. So I would like to advise every one of us, if we are using any practice test simulation we are using, try to review it. That would help you know the tricky part of the PMP exam. That was when I now came to the understanding that there could be two right answers, but there is one that still connects to your answer. So I didn't really, that was what consumed my time with the practice, not really, oh, I finished within time. No, it was about when I reviewed them, and that helps to put you in a comfortable position. So I guess that's just it. Just make sure that you have practiced well enough. And when it comes to timed practicing, let me put it that way. I guess that's where the question is coming from.
Mhm.
She wanted to know how well I practice. That's why I say it's tricky because it's peculiar. There are some people that they did that simulation of the maybe 150 or 180 questions repeatedly.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
that is what helped them to be able to answer fast. But I think what helped me was the fact that I had reviewed. So I already have an idea of what is expected. And I want to say one more thing already. And the exam situation,
Mm.
I was at the back of my mind, like, this is it. I have to get it right. So I wasn't really, I was really, really trying to make sure I read fast. There's something that comes unconsciously while you are in that exam room that I cannot
Yeah.
explain. So, so that helped me with reading it fast and like, okay, checking the time and all that. So
Gotcha. Gotcha.
practice
Good to hear.
question, our advice, like everybody advice, do it. But most importantly, pay more attention to reviewing why you missed the question and why you passed the question beyond the time that you have spent on it. Because once you have given yourself a time frame for the exam, when you are in that exam, you will be
Mm.
under pressure to work within time.
Gotcha. Good. Very good. And thank you for the question, Mary Beth. Very good question. Well, everyone has their own approaches to stuff, but I also want to point out that you are in very recent time an experienced test taker. You've done a post grad, your mind was still buzzing. You didn't let the steam die out. Then you did CSM, your mind was totally in the agile realm, buzzing in Scrum and Agile. Then you took the PSM, which is a crazy exam. In
Very
fact, the questions on the PSM are worse than the ones on the PMP, and you barely
close.
have time. So you've already been through the school of hard knocks in Agile. And since your exam was predominantly Agile, it just meant that you were going to be able to handle it okay and use process of elimination. You had a lot of experience. So I'll say to those at home, don't try this at home because she's an anomaly. You got to understand. And then the time frame from when you came on the program to when you got certified was also rather short. So what months did you come on the program with
Oh,
Praizion? Do you remember?
remember.
I
I think
remember.
it was within like 2 months.
Yeah, it was quick.
Yeah.
Considering you were also busy, you were getting ready to graduate with your postgrad. And by the way, those who didn't notice from the poster, she's also a PhD. You got to remember, folks with PhDs, a lot of them have a high tolerance for ambiguity and volume. So, like I'm saying, don't try this at home because she's a bit of an anomaly. But taking the question and looking at it under the microscope, it boils down to everyone doing what they need to do to get to that level of proficiency. Take
Yeah.
as many questions. It's not necessarily about the number of mock tests. I think it's also about the quality. You also need to remember in the class, I always would go through these situational questions. I break down, this is how to look at the question, this is how to analyze it. And you did a lot of studying of this as well, and PDFs. So all of that weighs in. But let me ask you this. Can you break down for us the PMBOK 6 and 7? Did you open those at all? Did you read through those in any way? Can you break that down for us?
Okay. I did, but I wouldn't say like in full detail. I think I paid more attention to the 7 because it has to do with value delivery and it's more aligned to agile. And I already had a mindset that, okay, I need to prepare for this more with respect to agile. So I reviewed the Pinbox 6 and the 7, but not like I skimmed through more or less for the
Okay.
6.
Okay.
So the 6 is more of processes, procedures, and all that.
Mm.
So I try to make sure I know them. Initially, I was concerned about the ITTOs. If you
Yeah.
notice, I was really concerned about, okay, I need to get all this in. But when I discovered the what is required more for the exams, and I started to narrow down to that of the 7. And
Okay.
in a summary, everything is required, both the 6 and the 7.
Mm.
But when you start treating simulation questions, that would
Mm.
help you see how you could apply both in any situation. So that was what
Okay.
helped.
Gotcha. On the real exam, would you say that the weighting of the 6 was very, I mean, would you say it was the same as the 7th, or would you say the prominence of the 7th seemed to be more on the exam if you're going to choose one over the other?
I would say the 7 is more because it has to do with the mindset
Mm.
and how you deliver value, how you organize your team, how you manage your team to deliver value, and your position as a project manager and servant leadership. All this has to do with that mindset in there. And the fact that it's a situational, I think I don't know how the exams were because nobody really sees the
Mm-hmm.
previous questions. But I
True.
would want to imagine that this time it is easier to, I won't say the exam is easier, but I would say it is easier to manage the exam now
Yeah.
than previously. I would want
Before.
to say so because I could only imagine whereby I need to be ready with all the ITTOs.
ITTOs. Yeah.
Yeah, as opposed to practical application. This is practical application now. Like
Mm-hmm.
it will you just know that this is what I should do next. Like it just sinks in. So
Mm-hmm.
this is just to help my friends, let them know they should have a more relaxed mind because
Mm.
it's about applying what you. So
That's
what you
true.
should do
Yeah.
next, what you should have done
Mm.
to avoid a situation, it is coming in a situation. It is not coming in a strict sense of what comes after initiation, what comes after planning. It's in a situation. So it helps you to be able to, I don't know where it comes out from the brain, but it will come out from somewhere.
That's very interesting. There's a couple of things I want us to do. And one is the Agile Practice Guide commentary. If you're talking about the Agile Practice Guide, how relevant, the same way you critiqued the 6 and 7, what of the Agile Practice Guide? Very relevant.
It is very relevant as well. It is, there's a lot of connection between the 12 principles in the 7th and
Mm-hmm.
the Agile Practice Guide as well. It's related
Mm-hmm.
to your application, to less of processes and more of trying to find the right word. Um,
Mindset, you said, right?
Mindset, relationship, you
Mm.
know, that's it. Of
Let
course,
me
the
give
Agile
you, let
Practice
me,
Guide is very important. Yeah.
yeah, let me give you an exam, and it's not a trick question. Just from intuition, right? You have the 6th, you have the 7th, you have the Agile Practice Guide. I know there's overlap, right? If you are
Hmm.
going to give them a percentage just by intuition breakdown without thinking it, don't overthink it. I know you're very analytical. So, what percentage is Agile Practice Guides? Just give me a number, throw me a number, percentage wise.
I would say 80.
Wow, that's so helpful to know. And then if you're going to break down the remaining 20%, how many of it would go to
Oh,
7?
you mean dividing it amongst all of them?
Yes. Yeah,
Oh,
the
I thought I
exam.
could. Okay,
Yes.
okay, okay, okay. Um, hmm, the Agile Practice Guide will definitely take like 60.
Okay.
Yes, then
And
I don't want anybody to hold me to this, but both
nobody
of
is going
them,
to hold you because we all have our individual
yeah,
perspectives. And you got to remember, Agile Practice Guide, pages 90 to 95, has very heavy predictive through an agile lens, which makes it very hybridized, this page. So
yes,
even though
yes.
it's Agile Practice Guide, it's not all agile. There's some hybrid in there. So that's understandable. And
Exactly,
the
because there are some questions like there it's hybrid, but you should know agile to be able to handle hybrid.
Yes, if you don't know agile, you can't handle hybrid. Very true. Yeah.
Yeah,
So the sixth and the seventh, from
yeah.
what I'm hearing, it's not a 2020 because we've got 40% left. So what would you say it is? Is it a 15-25, a
Yeah, I
30-10
think I'll do 15-25.
in favor of which one has a
Favor
25 to
of
be
the
clear?
seventh.
Got to be clear. Okay. That's so
Yeah.
helpful to know. And this is going to help a lot of people who are scratching their heads, wondering what to focus on. Now it's very clear that all of it is important. Because imagine if you don't
All
know
of
this 15%, this could be bad, or someone who doesn't know this 25% could be bad. So when we're talking about the sixth and the seventh, from what I'm hearing, the principles are most important in the
principle.
seventh, right? And then in the sixth, it seems like just having an understanding of what the process does at a high level and knowing the terminology seems to be the more important piece.
Yes. And there are a lot of, I think hybrid took majority. Like you're talking about stakeholder engagement, for example, and
Mm,
you would see that there's a bit of agile in stakeholder engagement. You
yes.
and it's more of it's real highly hybridized. I mean,
Mm, mhm. That
it's
is so
highly
helpful to know.
hybridized. And what makes something hybrid
Mm.
is the agile thing in it.
Something in
So
the water. There's
sorry.
agile. I said there's something in the water. There's something in the agile and the
Yeah,
predictive water that makes the agile more dominant because you're looking at it, you know that there's some predictive, but the agile just seems to dominate it, is what I'm hearing.
exactly.
And if you
Exactly.
don't know that agile piece, you're in trouble, it sounds like. That seems to be the struggle. Okay. So would you say that your CSM and your PSM you had a competitive edge because of those? It sounds like you did. Just knowing the agile so well gave you that edge. But when it comes to the sixth and the seventh, what percentage of your study time would you say was spent on predictive and those two books? Would you say it kind of matched the breakdown you gave us, or did you spend too much time on the sixth? Would you say you
Well,
spent too long?
I just mentioned that my mindset pre the exam and post the exam is slightly different because pre the exams, I was really concerned about the predictive
Mm,
because of the fact that I was relatively comfortable with Agile.
mm,
So I was trying to see, okay, how I would master the 49 processes, the knowledge areas, and the rest of them. So I would say I still had to make sure that I was really in because these things can just fly off before you know it. So I
mhm.
needed to make it, I needed to make it a part of me. So in as much I still kept refreshing my mindset on agile and the agile process, the agile part of it, I also was paying a lot of attention to the processes too, the 49 processes. And that also helped during the exams.
Okay. So tell me, if we were going to take a look at your handbook guide, your reading material, we gave you so many things. So you already knew a whole lot of Agile. You got this book. Did you refer to this or did you refer to this in your studying? And then we had the 600-page immersion. So were any of these add-ons to your studying at all?
They were, but I just read through like speed read
Mm-hmm.
because of the bulk.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
It's
Yeah.
the bulky nature, yeah.
Yeah, what about the audio digest? So you were given like
Yeah,
20 hours.
the audio digest was something I listened to again and again because I like to listen to things. So it really helped me. And
Mm,
if I need to read something, I like to read it from a book.
okay.
So I didn't really have time to print much. I just printed
Ah,
it too. But
gotcha.
with respect to the audio, it really helped because as I listened to it, it became part of me. And there are certain aspects when you're making your analogy that you would emphasize certain things. And that helped with me getting used to what is expected.
Gotcha. Gotcha. I want to put you on the spot again. Being that you're an academician, this is a small deal. I want you to coach me, right? I want you to be my coach in writing a PMP question. So that means you're going to tell me, Phil, no, that's a rubbish question. This is how you can write it better. So let me put on the hat of the clueless question writer from 2017. So I'm going to write a question and you tell me what I can do to make the question better. So I'm going to write a question for the PMP and it's going to go something like this. What is the output of developed project charter? So you coach me, you tell me what I need to do to make this question a better question.
Hmm. Obviously, this question is a zero, like a no-no for standard.
Oh,
So
gee.
it's actually preferable if you need to put something like this. You could say, um, you are a PM and you have submitted um, you have submitted you're reviewing a business case
Okay.
reviewing a
You,
business case with your sponsors or your stakeholders,
huh?
the business case with your and okay. I'm trying to be careful here. So
So let me go a
just
step
that's
further
going
since
to
you've
be
coached me. So I'll say you're reviewing a business case with your stakeholders and customer.
mhm.
Okay. There is an argument about the scope of work described. What should you do next? Is this going in the right direction or am I getting colder?
It's it's better than what you had
At the
previously.
beginning.
Yes.
So what can I do to make this better?
So you have to be more precise,
Mm,
even if it's a scenario, you
mm,
still have to be more precise.
okay. There's an
Yes.
argument about the scope of work described. Some feel it is not achievable
Yeah.
in the time frame given. Okay, so what should you do next? So you tell me some good options. So I'm going to give you some ridiculous options. Is do nothing is that a good choice? Would you find do nothing as an option, or is that a lazy question? Should I make it more like
It could be
Something.
it could be do nothing because everything is explicitly written.
Ah,
Because do nothing because.
okay. I like that. Okay. And then B, uh, counter the argument with proven facts. How can I make that one more convincing or better?
Okay, it could be influence, influence, influence them or persuade.
Ah, okay. Are there any, like, would there be one that is just so ridiculous, like, tell them to be quiet? Would
Mm,
there, or that's kind of far-fetched?
there could be a ridiculous, but not that ridiculous.
Not that
That's
ridiculous.
extreme.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it
Okay.
could be something like, okay, you're actually reviewing something currently, and you could say you call for an adjournment of the
Okay.
meeting till for another time.
Okay. Which is obviously one of the bad choices because you're running away from it, is it?
Yeah.
And then what would a befitting answer for something like this be? What would a good answer be?
Okay.
Put it on the
It
proverbial
could
agile
be
hat.
it could be to give further explanation, or it could be either to give further explanation, or it could be to ask the stakeholder who has a concern their major issues with it or their concerns, ask about it, then give further explanation, you know,
Okay, something along those lines.
to address the areas of concern.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So, and address. Okay. So do nothing is passive, persuade the stakeholders with proven facts. It doesn't allow the stakeholders to be heard. You're not hearing them out, which it sounds good, but it's
It
not.
sounds good, but it's not the
Yeah.
as it relates to this situation.
Mhm. And call for an adjournment of of the meeting for another time. You'll be amazed at how many folks may think that is not a bad thing to do. But when you
Mm.
have the mindset, so why can you tell us why C would be, just for the sake of those who may be watching and new to this, why is C not good?
Yeah, one, you're meeting with stakeholders, and these are people that their time is money. Everybody
Mm,
is busy, so you come together, everybody is together, and what needs to be addressed at that point. You need to be prepared for the meeting before then.
mm,
So when you just call for an adjournment for another day, it doesn't speak well as a
mm,
project manager, and it's also you're going to lose the trust they have
mm.
in. So
Beautifully said. Thank you. Thank you for rolling with it. This was a great little exercise. What I want the folks who are watching and getting ready for the exam to take away is, number one, you're going to get questions that are potentially this long, right? This is not too long and it's not short either, right? It's kind of in the pocket, would you say? Or are there worse questions that are longer than this?
yeah, but it's mostly within this. You hardly
Okay,
see, although this is boldly typed, by the time if it's
shrink
compressed,
it.
it might, yes.
Mm,
So between 2 to 3 lines max, I would say.
okay, that is good to know. Okay, let's get rid of this. And let's shrink it down just a little bit to give it a more realistic size. So
Yes, the size of your font. Aha.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it is a believable length on average. Would you say this is on average what the question would, how long it would be?
Yes. For the most part.
Okay. And then you could have some longer ones.
Yes, you could have some like 4 lines, 4 full lines, but
Wow.
you will discover that the initial part is just
Hmm.
mm, like story.
Story. Okay. Story. Got it. Got it.
But
Okay.
of course, you need to know the story to be able to.
Uh,
I attempted certain things when I was doing my practice. So
mhm.
when I'm confronted with a lengthy question, I just start from the ending part or the middle. So I used to
Mm.
discover that I used to miss something in that process.
Ah, okay.
So that wasn't, it works for some people.
Yeah.
I used it in a way during my PSM, it worked.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I discovered that from the beginning of any question, there's always something that sounds like a story or is prepping you for the
Ah.
action you should take.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you got to be
So
careful what you skip.
yes, so from that beginning part, you would start, your mind will start reading, okay, I'm in agile or predictive or hybrid. So
Mm, got it. We got a great question in from Vivian, and Vivian says, is this an agile or predictive approach? What do you have to say about that?
hmm.
This question we're looking at here.
Well, I would say it's hybrid,
I
but
agree. I
more
mean,
more
it's
predictive. It's
yeah,
predictive.
it's more predictive, but it could also be hybrid. And the reason is the business case is not peculiar to only predictive, but talking about achievable within the time frame, that generally is used as a predictive landscape, generally. But it's not a given because we could be talking about multiple releases because there's still milestones in the world of agile. We treat them differently. So you're right. It could be predictive or it could be hybrid. But you know what? On the exam, you won't even know. You won't even know. And honestly, you won't even care. That's not what you're going to be thinking about. What you're going to be thinking about is how to answer this question.
Yes,
Yeah.
and if I'm to say, if even if you want to answer any question, your mind should be more, except it's outrightly stated. I just put
Mm,
my mind more on the agile, even when I'm answering a hybrid question. Because that's what
hmm.
makes a question hybrid.
Yes.
Without
Yes.
agile, there's no hybrid.
True. That's
So
true. Yeah.
that is usually what they want to, I guess, that's what I feel they want to get out of me to know if I have this understanding.
That's true. Good deal. Wow, I think I've been taken to school. Thank you for the coaching. I really appreciate it. Because there's nothing like getting someone who has gone through the process and read and studied tell you this is the best way to present a question of this nature. And now, not only have you helped me, you've also helped other people that write questions. And that's what this whole thing is about. It's to help people write more convincing questions. If they're question writers, it's to help students know what to expect if they're going in for the exam.
Mm.
So the other question that we often ask our graduates is, what would you do
Do
differently?
differently. Well, I don't know if I could say mine because it might sound odd. Uh, First, I will it be during the exam or before the exams?
Let's talk about the whole timeline.
The whole time, like, okay, uh, I studied well enough. I probably would have put in more time into attempting the full um the full 180 questions. Probably would have done that. Maybe that would have helped more. Then during the exam, I think we all know our strengths and our weaknesses to an extent. So I could say my weakness was calculation. And I already knew even before I went in. And I still prepared for the aspect that had calculation. But I didn't know what form it would come. In fact, that was those questions were one of those that came more lengthy. It was quite long. So I noticed I spent too much time on that. And there were just two of them. And in my head, after I had finished, I was like, the time I spent on this, I would have used it to perfect the ones. I just kept thinking like I would have just seen the calculation skipped and focus on, like, I was like, two questions would not make me, that's my own thinking. Might not work for someone else. But
So when we say calculation, let's make it clear. We're talking about needing a calculator.
Yes, there's a calculator for everybody to use. It's on.
And how many times did you ever use the calculator? None. Or
I
did you?
I just used it like twice. I was
Okay.
using it to calculate my time when I was not sure of how many
Okay.
minutes I have
How many
left.
hours, minutes you had left? Ah, but not, but
Just to be
not for a
sure.
big, gotcha. But it wasn't for an earned value question or SPI, CPI, or any of that stuff.
No, it wasn't for that.
Okay.
But I had
Okay.
to pay. I spent time reviewing that question so much that I think I gave it too much time than needed. So I probably would have just flagged it and just continued with the other ones that I was comfortable with.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, Sarah, we got 4 minutes left. I don't want to hog the whole question and answering session. Thank you for coaching me on how to write better questions. Let's ask our friends if they have got questions about anything. Now will be a good time for you to ask. Any questions? Thank you for visiting with us, Dwight and Vivian, and of course, Stephanie, who is a PMP guru already. Stephanie, thank you very much for helping this journey. You came on when Serah and I had our immersion. You stayed. You gave back to the community. You gave
Yes.
2 cents. How do you feel now that you've seen one of our friends certified?
Okay. Do you think she can unmute? The
That's true.
settings.
Maybe let's go ahead. Stephanie, can you unmute?
Can you hear me?
We hear you. Uh-huh.
Yeah. It's over. That part is over. Part of being a PMP or just part of being someone who likes to support is like you're supposed to get back. So I think I know that I'm really proud of Serah for I knew that she was gonna pass. So congratulations to you.
Thank you.
I'm on my way to, matter of fact, I'm not on my way. I have actually earned my PDUs already. So
Nice.
after
Wow.
the exam,
Wow.
yeah, after the exam, what I wanted to do, I think I mentioned this to you like 1,000 times before, Phil, that I wanted to learn more about the earned value. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I just went back and started taking some of the classes that they have at PMI. And as a member, I can, do these for free. And just went on and just kept looking and listening to webinars, virtual, on demand and virtual, and just found out that I have, I actually have all my PDUs.
Yeah. So you know what to do?
Yep,
You know what to do? On the
Yep.
third year of your cycle, you can get another 20 and you can bank them for the next cycle. But now you're not allowed to do that until the third year. That's the way it works.
Yeah,
You
but the
can't
thing is that what I like about it is that even though I have my own flow sheet, I guess I'm not all that trusting. I have my own flow sheet, and I just don't. Systems sometimes have a way of breaking down, but PMI actually keeps track of the courses that you take. So they let me know that hey, you have your PDUs. And what I do is I also keep a flow sheet, but I noticed that when I went back to check the flow sheet through PMI, is that it's it approves the training, but past the 60 PDUs, it just puts 0 and that it was approved. So I'm keeping track on my own flow sheet and actually keeping track on them. There's a lot of really, really good information on there. Can I go back to, you had actually asked a question about the exam Excel. This exam reminds me of the social work exam. I'm a licensed social worker, and I noticed that sometimes, I can take the exam and then one of my colleagues can take the exam, and the content of the exam could be completely different.
Completely, yes.
Completely different. The content can be completely different. For me, PMBOK 6 and 7 was there. Agile was definitely there. Definitely. There was no way you can get around it. I think I got 2 questions that had to do with anything that had to do calculations. That question, matter of fact, I'm actually looking at it now because it was on one of the questions of the day that I have PMI. I'm looking at it. It was 5 lines.
Wow.
5.
Crazy.
Yeah. And you have 4 answers. So, I just think that, for the exams, like, I think what it appears to me is that the exam, the concept may be different depending on when you're going.
Yeah.
One size.
That's a really good point. Great point. Yeah. Well, thank you, Stephanie. Great to hear your voice. I appreciate you coming on the lessons learned. And Sarah, thank you for giving us 1 hour of your time. I've just sent you a link. Feel free to go ahead and fill in that form, claim your PDU for coming to speak to us. You got to start now, because look at Stephanie, she's done with her 60. So so I know that you'll catch up in due time. But I also want to say thank you to Vivian and Dwight and Mary Beth for coming through. Thank you all very much. I'll go ahead and stop the recording, and then we can take any questions offline.